Alright, so the basics of keyframing and animating stuff in Maya. First of all, just a brief reminder, because it's been a while since you guys have probably worked with Maya. When you start, you just want to go in and set your project so that Maya knows where to save all of your stuff. Anywho, alright, so I'm just going to make a random sphere, and I'm just going to put this at 0, 0, 0, just because I like them zeroed out. So the first thing you want to do in Maya, if you want to start animating something, is set a keyframe. A keyframe is basically just Maya making a note of specific coordinates in space and saying, hey, at this particular time in your animation, I want this object to be at this location. So there are like 4 different ways to do this. You can either go under the animation menu up here, go to the key menu, and do set key. And you'll notice that if I look at my time slider down here, there's a little red bar that showed up that's saying, hey, at frame 1, there's a keyframe down here. And you can see in the channel box for the object, it's basically gone through and set a keyframe for every single attribute for translate, rotate, scale, and visibility. So there's ways to customize this, I'll get to that later. Another way to set a keyframe is, if you noticed, it actually tells you that S is the hotkey for set key. So I pretty much never use this menu ever because I could literally just press S on my keyboard at frame 10, and you'll notice as soon as I do that, again, it set another keyframe. So you'll notice that as I scrub between these values, the object isn't moving because I haven't actually moved it. But if you look at these little bars over here on the attributes, whenever I'm on a frame without a keyframe on it, they're pink. And then if I go over to a frame like frame 10 or frame 1 with a keyframe, they're red. So anytime these are red, it's saying, hey, there's a keyframe on this specific frame that you're on. Anytime that these are pink, it's saying that these are keyed somewhere, but not on this particular frame. So that's 2 ways to set a keyframe. I'm gonna just randomly go back to frame 20 for grins. Oh, actually here, let me move this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move this. And I'm not gonna set any keyframes. You'll notice, so once I move these, I've only changed the translate values. Everything else is red because those are keyed on this particular frame. But in this case, if I want these changes to be saved, I would have to key over these values. If I just scrub back anywhere else in the timeline without keying those values, it's just going to snap back to where it was originally at frame 10. So I'm just going to move this up here, press S, and now you can see that the object, it's saved those values, and the object is going to move back and forth through space. So other ways to set keyframes. If I only wanted to key a specific value, say, I don't know, I'm only going to do translate Y, and maybe I'll scale all of these. So you can key specific values at once if you are so inclined, which I like doing. It helps keep things a little bit more organized. So I'm just going to click on the text of this attribute, and then you can do multiples at once if you just click and drag with your left mouse button. You can also click, and then if you hold down Control, you can go and highlight ones that aren't right next to each other. And then just right-click, pretty much anywhere in this area, and do key selected. You'll notice at that point, once again, it is added a keyframe to only the values that I've selected. Those little bars turned red, and none of the other values have been keyed, which, again, depending on what you're doing, can make your life way more organized, because you don't need to sort of fight with keyframes that you put in but don't necessarily need. It's largely up to personal preference, and you can see, again, works pretty much the same way that other keyframes have done. What if I do something really obnoxious to this to make it, like, really interesting? Kind of weird, it, like, didn't change that keyframe value. Weird. Alright, anyway. Not entirely sure what it's doing there with the scale values, but so that's the third way to set a keyframe. The fourth way, if I just go to frame 40, 30, is actually auto key. So that's down here in the bottom right corner of your screen. It's like a little orange line with some white circular arrows around it. So if I turn this on, it's on if it's highlighted red. Anytime I change values for anything, so I'm just gonna like move this around, And you'll notice that pretty much as soon as I release my mouse button, it has keyed these values that I have changed. It does this automatically, and it's both really nice and really weird. So it does have the potential to override existing animations, so if you're super happy, or you definitely want to make sure that your animations aren't overwritten accidentally, maybe don't use this, but I use this a lot for animation, especially just sort of for blocking stuff in, and then I can go back and sort of modify and delete my keyframes later. So, that is pretty much the 4 different ways to set keyframes. So again, you have in your animation menu, go to the key menu and do set key. You have the hotkey for that, which is just S. You can select individual values and just right-click and do key selected, or you can turn on auto key and just sort of have that running in the background no matter what you're doing. And this will work. You can also, do other things in conjunction with auto key and just leave this on and also key specific values, etc. So hopefully that makes sense. In the next few videos, I'm going to go over how to change the position of these, maybe, modify, delete, copy keyframes, as well as a little bit more about the time slider and how to turn it on or off if you don't want it on your screen, etc.